Just imagine that for a second, being trapped inside a force you can't fight, a force that's made up entirely of other people.
Welcome to The Explainer. We've all seen those horrible headlines after a concert or a festival, but what if I told you that the reason these tragedies happen isn't what we've all been led to believe? Today, we're going to deconstruct crowd disasters and show you how they're not random accidents at all. They're actually predictable, preventable events that are governed by the laws of physics.
You know, to really understand what goes so horribly wrong in a crowd, we have to start with the human experience. What does it actually feel like? So we're going to go inside one of the worst crowd disasters in modern history, the 2010 Love Parade in Germany, through the eyes of the people who survived it.
And right away, the story we're all told starts to completely fall apart. The media was plastered with one phrase: mass panic. But when researchers actually sat down and analyzed hundreds of witness statements, they found the exact opposite. The most common thing people talked about wasn't trampling each other to get out, it was trying to help total strangers, even when it put them in incredible danger.
See, the real enemy wasn't psychology, it was physics. Survivors described these uncontrollable pressure waves hitting them, waves so powerful they literally lifted people off their feet. The force was so immense that you couldn't even expand your chest to breathe. People were fainting while still standing up, just held in place by the pressure, before eventually falling into these massive piles that were impossible to escape from.
So, okay, if it's not mass panic, then what on earth is actually going on here? Well, scientists are now using physics and even fluid dynamics to explain the terrifying things those witnesses felt and, more importantly, to predict when a crowd is about to turn deadly. First things first, we have to get the language right, because the words we use really matter. The media loves to use the word stampede, but it's almost always wrong. A stampede is when people have space to run. These disasters are the opposite. They happen when there's absolutely no space to move at all. The correct term is a crowd crush. And it's not just a feeling. If you actually analyze news reports, you see it everywhere. The word stampede paints this picture of irrational people fleeing, which kind of puts the blame on the victims, right? But crush, that word correctly points to the real cause. Too many people in too small a space. This isn't just about being picky with words. This mislabeling has shaped how we've misunderstood these events for decades. The danger starts at a very specific, measurable point. Get this. At around 4 or 5 people per square meter, and that's like cramming 4 people into an old-school phone booth, you lose control over your own movement. You're not deciding where to go anymore. The crowd is moving you.
But then, when that density gets above 10 people per square meter, well, that's when computer simulations and real-world disaster analysis show that the forces become lethal. The pressure can get so great it can literally bend steel barriers. The human body just doesn't stand a chance.
And this leads to this absolutely terrifying transformation. The crowd goes through what's called a phase transition. It literally stops being a group of individual people and becomes a single fluid-like system. Physicists call it active matter. People just become particles in a liquid, pushed and pulled by forces they can't possibly fight. This is why survivors said they were being carried by waves, because, physically, they were.
And inside this crowd fluid, something even scarier can happen. These things called chiral oscillators. Basically, hundreds of people can spontaneously start moving together in these giant circular whirlpools. These whirlpools create massive, unpredictable surges that are often the deadliest part of a crowd crush. And here is where the science and the human stories connect perfectly. When physicists went back and analyzed the video footage from the Love Parade, they saw it. They saw the formation of these exact chiral oscillations just moments before things turned fatal. Those pressure waves the survivors felt, they weren't just random shoves. They were the physical force of these massive, swirling vortexes of people.
All this new science proves that these are not random acts of God. They are predictable, they are preventable, they are system failures. So what happens when those systems fail? For a tragic, recent example, we have to look at the 2022 Itaewon crowd crush in South Korea.
So experts looking at what went wrong in Itaewon point to this really critical gap in planning. The Halloween gathering there was massive, but it was spontaneous. There was no single organizer. Now, the authorities had emergency plans, sure, but those are for ordinary organized events like a concert. What they didn't have was a contingency plan, a plan B built specifically for a huge, unofficial, and unpredictable event like this.
And not having that contingency plan led to this catastrophic chain reaction of failures. First, because it was an unofficial event, a legal loophole meant no single government agency was technically responsible for safety. Second, the place itself was basically a death trap, a narrow, sloping alley that had been made even tighter by illegal construction. And third, without a plan, there was no one in charge, no central command watching the crowd density and stepping in before it reached that critical fluid state.
The impact of these system failures is just devastating. And it goes so far beyond the day of the event itself. It affects thousands of people in ways we are honestly just beginning to understand. So after the Itaewon crush, a study of South Korean citizens found something pretty startling. Now obviously PTSD was highest among the direct victims, no surprise there. But the second most affected group wasn't first responders or family members, it was regular people who weren't even there. People who only saw the event happening on their screens.
And here's why that happened. In our world, disasters are live-streamed. During the Itaewon crush, people inside the crowd were broadcasting the horror on social media, in real time with no filter. It was completely uncensored, so there was no gatekeeper. Millions of people were exposed to this raw, traumatic footage, which created this huge, indirect mass trauma.
So the bottom line here is simple, and it's really important. These tragedies are not inevitable. They are not caused by mass panic. They are caused by predictable physical forces that are allowed to get out of control because of bad design and bad planning. They are, at their core, preventable.
And that leaves us with one final thought. We have the science now. We can measure crowd density in real time. We understand the fluid dynamics. We can literally spot these deadly whirlpools as they start to form. So the question isn't, can we prevent these disasters anymore? The question is, will we?